Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day, and today I'm going to talk about what's in the news all over the place, Trump's newest indictment. It's for the January 6th interference. Prosecutors say that the alleged scheme, which allegedly involves 6 unnamed, unindicted co-conspirators, included enlisting a slate of fake electors, targeting several states using the Justice Department to conduct sham election crime investigations, and enlisting the vice president to alter election results. That sounds like weaponization of the Justice Department. So again, it just proves that whatever Republicans are accusing their opponents of, chances are pretty good that that's exactly what they're doing themselves. Now he's being charged with 4 felonies. Now keep in mind, I haven't gone through and read the actual indictment yet. I'm having technical difficulties, but I will. The 4 felonies are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. I had to look into that one. I hadn't heard that one before. You know, the obstruction, all that kind of stuff is pretty standard. But the conspiracy against rights is USC section 241. It makes it unlawful for 2 or more persons to agree to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in the U.S. in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution or laws of the U.S., or because of his or her having exercised such a right. Meaning that all of the voters in the U.S. So those charges are pretty serious, and I had read at one point that if he is convicted and sentenced to the maximum for all of those charges, it is 55 years in prison. But the indictment alleges that Trump knew that his claims about the election, specifically in Arizona and Georgia, were false. He allegedly lied to Pence about the election fraud to get him to accept a slate of fake electors. And he allegedly said, bottom line, won every state by hundreds of thousands of votes. We won every single state. Obviously, that's false and completely factually wrong. When Pence refused, Trump pushed the January 6th crowd to pressure Pence into action. Despite having lost the defendant, Trump was determined to stay in power. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew they were false, but repeated and widely disseminated them anyway, to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, and to create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Those are pretty damn serious charges. They're wild. I mean, it's not something that people who watch this channel or progressives are very surprised about, but it's different to actually hear it in federal criminal indictments. We all kind of knew what was actually happening, but up until this point, it was all just speculation, and admittedly, it is still alleged. It hasn't happened yet. He's going to be tried by a jury of his peers, and until then, we have to assume he's innocent, although, you know, the evidence kind of leans towards the direction that he's guilty as fuck. But the 6 co-conspirators that are unindicted, which means that they're probably being used, or Jack Smith is trying to get them to turn on Trump. So that's why they're unindicted. They're negotiating that kind of activity. But the 6 co-conspirators, the first one is believed to be Rudy Giuliani. That's a given. John Eastman is confirmed to be co-conspirator number 2. Sidney Powell appears to be co-conspirator number 3. Jeffrey Clark, whom Trump thought about installing as the Attorney General, is thought to be co-conspirator 4. Kenneth Chesebro, who worked to create a strategy for fake electors in his state of Wisconsin and then other states, is possibly co-conspirator number 5. The 6th co-conspirator is unknown, but is alleged to be a political consultant who helped implement the fraudulent elector scheme. So a lot of those we kind of already knew, and the reason that they're speculated as being those co-conspirators is because apparently in the indictment there's the allegations of the actions of these co-conspirators, and they coincide with the actions of these people that I just named. Now, Trump also wonders why they didn't do this. They didn't bring these charges against him 2.5 years ago. I wonder if he's ever heard of the term investigation, and that you can't really indict somebody without evidence. And the day after January 6th, January 7th, yeah, it looked bad, but we had no idea the scope of this conspiracy. So there was no way that it could have been brought 2.5 years ago. And because Trump is a former president of the United States and a wealthy white man, they had to make sure that they had the best possible case brought against him. That there could be virtually no mistakes in this case, in this trial, because they don't want it to be alleged to be, I'm sure, they don't want it to be seen as Biden attacking his political opponents, even though that is what Trump and his cronies and everyone are claiming is happening. But they want to minimize the evidence, I guess, of that. So it's pretty wild, and I don't know if any of you have listened to Rachel Maddow's Ultra on Spotify. This has happened before, just not with the president being the lead guy. They tried to overthrow the government to bring the Nazi people or the Nazi regime to America so we could basically be a duplicate of Nazi Germany. There was this big thing. They tried to take him to trial. There was a lot of issues and problems, and eventually the U.S. just kind of dropped the charges because the prosecutor died or something like that. It's been a while since I've listened to it, but I recommend going and listening to it. The judge that has been assigned to this case is Tanya, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Chutkan. She will oversee the trial. She was nominated by Obama, and she is so far the only judge that has sentenced the January 6th rioters to larger sentences than what the prosecutors had asked for. So that's actually kind of a good thing. She won't be, hopefully, afraid to hold Trump accountable to the fullest extent that she can. Hopefully. There's always that chance that people will just forget about this, that he'll be sentenced to just home confinement, and it'll be spun by the media in a way that there just wasn't enough evidence to convict. Hopefully things go right, that justice actually is held and Trump is found guilty if there is enough evidence to support that verdict, rather than the kind of the history of the US of letting rich white men off or giving them such a small sentence that it doesn't even do anything, like a monetary fine that's pennies to these guys. So hopefully justice will be served. Now there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, nothing to do with Trump's indictment. It has to do with the Hunter Biden thing. So the Republicans had their secret witness, that was supposed to be a slam dunk witness. And it was Devon Archer, and he is Hunter Biden's former business associate. And they were convinced that he was going to come in and just blow the whole lid off of this entire investigation and prove Joe Biden's guilt and Hunter Biden's guilt. And it didn't quite work out that way. Archer stated that Hunter did call his dad on multiple business meetings, but they didn't discuss any business. It was more of that Hunter used Joe Biden as an illusion of access to him. So he called his dad during these business meetings just to prove to the people he was doing business with that he did have a direct line to the then Vice President Joe Biden. So it sounds like the GOP's witness wasn't the big deal that they thought it was going to be. But there are some things that are still questionable. So my thoughts is just investigate. If you find the evidence that Joe Biden lied and is working with Hunter for his business dealings and using his position to an advantage and it's illegal, prosecute them both. I don't care. If you break the law, you need to be held accountable. It doesn't matter what party you are, how rich you are, what position you're in. You need to be held accountable, one way or the other. So it's kind of a shorter video, but I just kind of wanted to touch on those two topics. There will be another video coming in a few days about the psychology of maggots, the Make America Great Again Trump supporters, the psychology behind them, the psychology of how dictators use your brain through science to get you to agree with them. So it should be kind of an interesting video. At least I'm interested in it. So like always, vote, no matter how big, how small, how inconsequential, your vote matters, and read everything you can get your hands on. And I will see you next time.